Welcome back to AWN's weekly coverage of the App State football press conference. I'm Sabrina Foti.
And I'm Adam Persico.
The Mountaineers lost their second game in a row this weekend, this time at the hands of the Boise State Broncos. App State now sits at a 500 record heading into their upcoming matchup, where they host the Oregon State Beavers here in Boone. We are joining this morning by AWN and WASU sports analyst Bobby Phillips. Bobby, what sort of shift have you seen from the first two games to these last two games?
Yeah, the two most recent games for App State definitely have had a different feel to it for sure. The first two games of the season, they looked all right, especially against Charlotte, looked very solid, a little shaky against Lindenwood. Then you go on the road against Southern Miss. I think that road factor has a lot of play into what we're seeing so far from App State. Yes, the Charlotte game technically was on the road, but not nearly the same level of travel as Southern Miss or Boise State. I think the team just lacks a little bit of confidence. They don't seem very cohesive, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and they just don't look really prepared going into these games. And I think that's a big difference we've seen so far from App State.
Now, Bobby, 2 weeks in a row, we've seen issues from starting quarterback A.J. Swan, either not looking confident, throwing turnovers. I mean, should we expect a change coming into this next week?
I wouldn't be surprised at all, Adam, if that does occur. Of course, J.J. Cole, the main backup for App State, is injured right now, so we don't fully know the injury situation. We might hear a little bit about it from the press conference today, but don't really know the health situation on him. But I wouldn't be very surprised. He had 3 interceptions against Southern Miss, then turns around and has a very similar performance against Boise State. I don't know if Billy Wiles is necessarily the fix for this issue going into next week. He had his own struggles against Boise, but looked very solid against Southern Miss. So I wouldn't be very surprised if Dowell Loggins makes that shift. I think it's more likely if J.J. Cole is healthy that you put in a new quarterback. It just kind of depends on that situation.
Yeah, and then going into this week, we're playing Oregon State, which is 0-5 right now. Do you think we should be worried about this game?
I think App State, they have to treat it very seriously like any other game, of course, Sabrina, but I think there is a slight issue, especially from fans going into this, which is saying a lot because Oregon State is 0-5 so far to start the year, and that's not a very good sign for your football team if people are concerned about you going into an 0-5 matchup at home. However, I think App State has a lot of issues that they really need to get together, but I think this is a really good anchor point going into the future of the season. Yes, these two games have not been very good. Yes, the Lindenwood performance wasn't very amazing, but I think if you're able to come home and App State is able to address these issues, readjust themselves going into the future in their last non-conference game, I think that can be huge.
Yeah, and when you're talking about these issues, what's the one biggest issue you see right now that needs to be handled by Saturday?
I mean, if you look at Saturday's game, it's got to be the offensive line. Yes, A.J. Swan, he didn't look amazing out there, and I'm not saying he gets off scot-free from that, but there was a lot of quarterback pressure during this game, and I think we saw that a lot. And I think, if you're getting pressured and sacked 5 times during the game, of course you're not going to have a great football game out there for the day. Yes, you're the main guy driving the car, and you're the one propelling it forward, but the offensive line is the nuts and bolts keeping the car together. And if those fall apart, the entire offense falls apart. And I think that's what we really saw on Saturday, and I think App State just really needs to address that going into practice this week if they want a chance to win Oregon State or any other future games down the line, because after that we jump straight into Sun Belt play with this App State team, and I think that offensive line will be a key reason on if this team makes a bowl game or not.
And what do you think Dowell might say today for us?
I think there's going to be a couple things. Of course, there's going to be questions asked today. We have reporters there from AWN ourselves, but I think he'll come out there and most likely, like he's done in the previous situations like this, and just come out and straight up address it when he first goes to that podium. He's pretty honest about, hey, we didn't play that good on Saturday. I think the biggest thing people are looking towards, or two big things that people would be looking from this press conference today, is one, what's the quarterback situation going to look like? I think that's been a question last week as well, especially when there was a question on if A.J. Swan was healthy or not. And then two, how do you rally this team together? I think that's a big thing that a lot of fans and just, people want to know from Dowell Loggins is how do you address this in practice and how do you propel it going forward?
Yeah, and right now we can see the press conference actually, Dowell Loggins still coming up right now, still not there. But as we talk about this App State football team, it just feels like there's a lot of, issues that you have pointed at. I mean, what sort of solutions are you even looking towards? We talked about the problems, but what kind of solutions would you even have in mind?
I mean, obviously the offensive line is the best place to start right there, and that's just coaching. at the end of the day. I think you need to get the assignments right because, I was kind of joking about it a little bit, but in reality, it did look like a Swiss cheese offensive line right there because it was just filled with holes and they were able to really get that pressure in. I think that's the main place to address it, but also I would like A.J. Swan to go through his reads a little bit slower when he is in that pocket. Of course, that requires pocket time to start with, but I think being able to look around, make smarter reads, that would reduce the turnovers because, yes, the offensive line isn't doing a great job, but at the end of the day, the interceptions are on you. And you really have to make sure that you're making the right reads, you're able to read that defense, and don't chuck it into double, triple coverage. I don't want to see that from App State at all. And just be able to go through those reads, I think, prevents that and limits those interceptions and turnovers.
Could you tell me a little bit more about Dominion and what you saw from him out there?
Yeah, Rashad Dominion has been the main bright spot all 4 weeks so far for App State leading up to this point. He's looked really solid. He had 113 yards on the game. I really like him. I do like the amount they use Jakari Lewis in this game a little bit more, but Dominion, he's just a dog. No other way to put it right there. He's out there, and it usually takes 2 to 3 guys at minimum to bring him down. And I think that's the only reason App State has really been able to remain competitive and is the main reason they're able to drive down the field.
Yeah, and Dominion, we saw he had 17 carries, which I believe was the lowest he had this year in terms of workload. And so we saw some more involvement from Jakari Lewis in the run game. Does that need to continue for Dominion to have success, decreased workload for him?
Absolutely, Adam. I think, I know for a fact, that in previous press conferences, Dowell Loggins has been asked about this question as, hey, Dominion looked great, but he had, 1 or 2 fumbles during the game. What happened there? And I think it was the volume that he was getting. So I really like to see Jakari Lewis be utilized a little bit more.
And Coach Dowell Loggins is walking up to the podium right now, so we're going to throw it to the press conference where we have some reporters live on the scene.
App State is hosting Oregon State at 3:30 this Saturday. Coach Loggins will give us an opening statement, and then we'll take questions from media members.
All right, appreciate you guys being here. Obviously disappointed with how last week's game went. What an awesome atmosphere, a great venue, ton of respect for how they've built their program. Kind of a model I think every G5 wants to copy, and it was a good litmus test for where we're at and where we need to go. And with that, I'm going to open it up.
All right, Marvin Parker with WLOS Asheville. Right beforehand, we were kind of still learning about the logistics of getting there and back. Anything that you picked up this weekend about getting to Boise and getting back?
Yeah, the travel's obviously difficult. Not only because it's a 4-hour flight, but you also have to go 2 hours to Charlotte to fly out there. So it's 6 hours there, 6 hours back. So logistically, there's a bunch of different avenues you can take. If you can, in the NFL, we used to go a day early sometimes to the West Coast, and you got to deal with the time change and all those things. So the morning on Friday obviously starts earlier because you got to get on the bus and drive 2 hours to Charlotte. But huge challenge that way. And then the opposite is Oregon State's going to feel it this week coming east to come play us as well.
And then something that I saw on the telecast and then also definitely heard about via social media was just the Mountaineers showing up, alumni support.
Yeah.
How was that experience seeing, the mountains out west?
Yeah, it was cool, but it was cool to see all the black and gold that was there. And this is a national brand that we're all really proud of and really honored to be a part of. And it is special when you look out there and you're that far away. I think it's a 34-hour drive to Boise from here. And the people that showed up, talks about their commitment level, their passion for this place. It's been earned over a long period of time, and I think it's just everyone can appreciate this brand and how the fans show up, and we have unbelievable great fans.
And in a loss, it's easier to see what went wrong and snowballed possibly, but maybe a few of we tried to do this and that at least panned out well or something like that.
Yeah, in losses, you got to self-reflect, number one, and you got to figure out, hey, what could we have done better as a coaching staff? What could I have done better as a head coach? And there's always good, but you better fix the bad quickly. And, too many times this year we feel like a broken record up here saying the same things. And at some point there has to be greater consequences for the self-inflicted things. You go out and you play Boise, who 9 months ago was in the college football playoff, who's kind of the premier G5 program in the country right now. Like, you can't have self-inflicted wounds. If you do that, you're not going to give yourself a chance to be in the game because you're playing a really good opponent. And they've been able to build their program over a long time. When you look at their model and you look at the number of years each guy has been in that program, it's 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 4 years, 4 years. And I think they had 6 transfers in their top 2, in the 2-deep roster, and most of them don't play a ton early on. And so they've done a really good job being able to take care of their own with their NIL, recruit well, and then develop, which I think we're all aspiring to be a team that grows from within, that takes care of their own, and we're all working really, really hard to get to that point where we can say we're there. We got a long way to go. I've got to do a better job starting with myself and our coaching staff. But I think we are recruiting the right way, and we are building the right way, and you got to win as you build.
And then with this week's opponent, Oregon State's 0-5. Their competition's different than App State's competition. Yeah. App State's 2-2, so the search to go to 500 versus, they're going to be fighting for that first win. What's the spirit of the team going into hosting Oregon State, even though they are 0-5?
Yeah, it's you guard against that, but you made the great point is look at who they've lost to. They've lost to really good football teams, to P4 teams with big NIL budgets. And you go back and you look at how they lost to Houston. I mean, they had a lead, and they lost the lead because of special teams mishaps. And the line between winning and losing is so fine. It's so fine, and sometimes the game gets away from you, and you look at the end of the season, and it's really the difference in having a really good season and a bad season. Do you win those close games? Do you continue to get better as the season goes on? I look at us last year at South Carolina, we're sitting there 3-3. And our fan base is freaking out. They don't think we have a quarterback. And, next thing you know, we win 6 in a row, and we're sitting there at the end of the season saying, are we in the college football playoffs or we're not? Like, let's see how this last weekend goes to see if we get in. So, you got to understand what it takes to win. You're building a culture. You're building a football team with a bunch of new people, and and you just keep coaching and educating, because on social media they're going to look and they're going to see their the people are going to tell our players sitting here of, oh, they're 0 this and 0 that. Well, I've also been the 0-10 team with the New York Jets that beat the LA Rams and Cleveland Browns, who were also playoff contenders that year and went to the playoffs that year. So records, like, you're trying to go 1-0 this week. And we're going to have a opponent that's really good, that has lost some really close games to really good teams. So we have a big challenge ahead of us this week.
And then spirit-wise, if I read the booklet correctly, it seems like since the pandemic, every year, at least one game a year, there's a record-setting attendance streak. Big matchup here. I expect, everyone to show out. So support-wise from the fans, maybe the loudest atmosphere that you've experienced here as a head coach. Looking forward to any of that home field advantage kicking in?
Oh, yeah. Since we've been here, whether it be a spring game, the Lindenwood game, I haven't been disappointed yet. Like, our fans are unbelievable. The Boise game, the away game, the Charlotte game, like, our fans haven't lost a game this year. Like, they are the real deal. That's why you want to come here. It's going to be a massive recruiting weekend for us. And you want to flip this thing around, and you want to win and get back to where everyone wants to get this place, you got to recruit. And it is about Johnnies and Joes, not the X's and O's. So we need everyone to show up and show out and be loud from start to finish, which they have if we're 34 hours away at Boise, they've shown up. So I expect our crowd to be awesome like they always are.
Last one from me.
We're about to go live.
Tell Jim and I, wait 1 second. She got the next question.
More complex topics or ideas just by talking. Before we get started,
Hey, he gets asked no questions about penalties. Yeah.
The big things you want to do in a matchup is score more points and limit points, but whether it be, I don't know the full stats on turnover differential or field position, is there something anecdotally that you really want to see manifest in this middle part of the season?
Yeah, there's a couple things we call our winning formula. Where we're not doing a good enough job and we didn't do a good enough job at Boise on either side of the ball, is explosives. Like, we got to stop them and we got to create them, and we didn't do a good enough job on either side. side. We turned the ball over too much. You had 2 pick sixes and a quarterback fumble, and we had 0 takeaways. And so when you're looking at like what it comes down to, turnover margin is always going to be the number one thing. Then explosives, and then red area offense and defense. And too many times, and then the penalties are, there's not a correlation in penalties and winning and losing. But I think there's a correlation with discipline and with that. And we're not a disciplined football team because our penalties say that. And, you know, so for us, it's like you go back and you start looking at penalties. Like we have, you gotta treat the problem, not the symptom. And you're looking at 2 third downs on defense where we're in 3rd and 6 and we have offsides. And so at that point is now you gotta start making decisions on like, hey, do we play that player less? Because there is consequences. We've hired referees the last 2 weeks. They have practice on Tuesdays and Wednesdays because those are our heavy work days to call those things because we're making an effort to fix those. There's disciplinary actions for those. The next thing is the bench. And sometimes you got to make tough decisions on, hey, this is our most talented guy, but if we're undisciplined, then let's play with a guy that might be a step slower, that might be a little bit smaller, but he's going to be disciplined. Those are the decisions you got to make as a coaching staff, what's best for the football team. There are consequences for mistakes, and you know, we were trying to eliminate the fear of failure. I think when we took over, there was a little bit of feeling out process. We hadn't had a lot of the success that we've wanted to around here for a long time. And so we're trying to eliminate the fear of failure, but also be a disciplined football team. And we're not there yet. But I can promise you we are working with being creative with ideas and thoughts and how we can do it as a full staff of how do we get this done with greater urgency because it's not getting done yet.
Coach David Jackson, take the wins losses out of it, third of the way through. Your self-scout versus your expectations coming into the year, where does that sit right now?
Yeah, self-scout versus expectations. So the expectation has always been to max out our football team through our vision, no one else's, through our lens, through no one else's, and we haven't done that. We're 2-2, so we've won 50% of our games. But like the staff was yesterday after the day, like I came in, like Charlotte, I wasn't happy after we won that game because I saw like we won the game convincingly, but I also saw the things if we don't get corrected, they're going to keep showing up, and they are showing up. And I knew eventually they would cost us a win, which I think they did against Southern Miss, and I think it cost us an opportunity to compete against Boise. And you go play a team like Boise, a college football playoff team, like you can't have self-inflicted wounds. You don't give yourself a chance. Some games you'll have a chance to compete against and overcome those things, but so that part's disappointing. And I don't think we've done. And I start with myself. Number one, like there were too many turnovers, not enough takeaways, and we're not where we need to be as far as being a disciplined, smart team. That until you're smart and we eliminate the penalties, we eliminate turnovers, and we start taking the ball away, we're not going to be the best version of ourselves because that's the type team we have to be right now. Like we're going to have to play clean football to give yourself a chance to win these games, these one-score games, and Boise can make mistakes and overcome those things. We can't right now. We're not there yet. So we need to continue. I'm not going to say I'm disappointed because I'm really excited about this game coming up, and I'm really excited about these practices coming up to fix these problems. We all acknowledge them, and we have urgency to fix them, and so I'm excited. I've been through this before. I've been through it too many times where last year I mentioned the 3-3. Well, we got it right. It took us a while. It took us 6 games to get it right, and we finally did. And the quarterback was playing, as the kids would say, mid, and then he took off. But we knew he was going to take off. We knew he was a really special player. It was going to take time. Time is not something we're allotted as football coaches and football teams, and so when you lose, you win and lose. Like the result's the result. We need to fix the things that hurt us from continue to get better. Like we want to see improvement, and we've seen glimpses of it, and we've seen flashes, but not the consistency that we need, and we have urgency to fix that.
A follow-up to that, as you move into October, how much of that is mental versus physical? Do you shift at this time of year? What's your philosophy around that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It goes back to the Oregon State, the Boise trip. Now you travel 12 hours of travel, play a really good, hard football team that plays physical. So we've shifted just today. Normally we'd start meetings at 1:45. Well, we're going to eat at 4:45 because I wanted to have them 3 meals today before we go practice. And today will be a walkthrough where normally we're practicing. So we're going to walk through in the evening because they need that extra day just to recover from the travel, to sleep. And when most of us got back at our houses at about 8 a.m. The next day. So just being smart from a sports science standpoint of that. At some point you're going to start to cut some reps physically. I just don't think this team's there yet. And we haven't played enough football together. Now the problem we have is we're starting to get banged up in some spots, in the offensive line and some other spots. So you got to measure, like, hey, do we practice half the time and then walk through half the time? Well, if you do that, like, you still have to have the fundamental works that creates the discipline, that creates the ball security. Now, that being said, we have in the ball security aspect, it's now become an interception thing, not a fumble thing. And we put a great emphasis on cleaning up those fumbles after the Lindenwood game, and we've done a good job that way. We need to keep doing that, and we need to stop throwing the ball to the other team. But so it's a fine line as a football coach. It takes everyone in here, and it's also Coach Parcells used to talk about the human GPS. Like, we all have the GPS. We're all in sports science. I came from the NFL, which sports science determines a lot of how we practice, and even our player loads individually. But it's also, there's a fine line of, you got to see who your best shape guys are, and how they're running, how they're moving. If they're still moving fine and they don't look tired, then you go. And then all of a sudden, when you start saying, hey, we're going to be tired, we're slowing down a little bit, that's when you start to cut back a little bit. But we're not in the position to cut back right now.
David Ware, 24/7 Sports. Last couple of games, we've seen multiple quarterbacks on the field.
Yeah.
The one we haven't seen is J.J. Cole. I know he was on an availability report before Southern Miss.
Yeah.
Can you give us an update? Is that still an injury-related situation?
Yeah, it's injury-related, and that's the reason. We went into the season with him as the 2, but he's been banged up and hasn't been able to play. We're not ever going to put someone out there unless they're able to protect themselves and play at a high level, and that's the reason. Every week we're waiting to see when he gets back, to see what he can do. And we have played multiple guys, and at that point, look, the game was what it was, and at some point that you can't turn the ball over that much, and you need to see something else. And then so we're going to keep, it's an open competition always, and we're going to, whether it be the 1, the 2, the 3, and so whoever practices best is going to be the 2. And from that standpoint, I think JJ will be able to do a little bit more this week, and we'll find out here about 2 o'clock today.
Sticking with personnel, what can you tell us about the availability of receiver Sam Mbake?
Yeah, working through some things with him physically. There was some NCAA stuff that we needed to get cleared first, which he has been cleared to play from just the transferring from school to school, and he got cleared last week to play. And then he had a knee thing for a little while, so he is available and healthy starting this week.
If you go back and look at the film from Boise, one of the things that really stood out to me was they did an excellent job, whatever they did, in taking Jaden Barnes.
Yeah.
Did you notice they were doing anything unique or exotic in getting there?
No, I don't think it. Well, number one, I think that we got to be better in pass protection, which is going to help us let those things develop. And I think they did a good job. When they played man, they did a good job covering him. And the people are, as you have that much production, him and Cummings both. Like, I think Cummings is still like the leading tight end in the Sun Belt with catches, and has had a very productive year. And Barnesy has too. They're going to start to draw attention. So sometimes it's hey, are we going to step up around him? Are we going to create problems outside where people have to continually change their coverages and not hone in on inside the hashes and inside the numbers, taking away the tight ends and the slots?
As you look at Oregon State, what they are on the field, recognizing their competition level, what are they trying to do offensively and defensively that you see and say, yeah, I can see what they're trying to do. They just had a really difficult schedule?
Yeah, I mean, they're a pro-style offense that they do a good job. They're going to create problems. They're going to lean, I'm sure, formationally on the Boise State stuff because Boise did a good job with some formation stuff, creating some bunches, stacks, making sure they're blocking safeties. We're able to move the pocket to create explosives. It's such a copycat league or profession, and when you're looking to formationally, like, we better own what we did defensively against Boise because they did their pro style offense, and they're gonna look at the themes and the schemes that they were trying to attack us on, and then offensively they're going to do a good job of mixing fronts. They're going to play base out of a 4 down, but they mix in enough odd that creates problems, and the teams that create problems are the guys that can go in and out of fronts and just junk up looks and move and do these things. It's a bigger, heavier defensive line than we've probably played all year. Boise was definitely the strongest group. You could tell it was homegrown. They'd been in the weight room together. They've had a chance to develop these guys. It's a heavier group. That would create a different type challenge for us this week. So when you look at those guys on offense and defense, that's what I'd say. And then special teams, we need to continue to find advantages that way. And when you're in the situation we're in, where you're 2-2, and we have to play complementary football. We have to be good in all 3 phases. We're going to continue to find creative ways to maximize what we do have and hide what we don't have.
I have a few over here without the mic.
We have time for 2 more, so 1 each maybe.
Coach, Will Battershow with Appalachian Weekly News. You touched on the secondary a little bit, and Boise State was able to navigate our secondary pretty well. Oregon State likes to pass the ball a lot.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that this week?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with our pass rush, number one. We got to do a better job getting home. You got to give Boise a lot of credit, and they blocked us. They did. And, they've got a good offensive line, and so we need to create ways to get home. And whether that looks like what that looks like, you can do that in a variety of ways because, look, the best defenses are going to be the ones, and it happened for us early, when you can rush with 4 and get home and be able to play coverage with 7. Well, a lot of times in the game versus Boise, we knew it was going to be a challenge with their skill guys. So there's a lot of drop 8. So we wanted to load our coverages, knowing that we were going to have problems with the receivers. And we have a good group of DBs, but there's a talented group at Boise. And so you got to look for creative ways to, do you run more simulated pressure? Do you blitz more? When you do that, you're going to put your corners and safeties in situations that are not advantageous all the time, or they got to win one-on-one battles. So you got to feel really good. It talks about, like, the ultimate philosophy for all 3 phases, and I think it's just in every sport, is how do you apply pressure? And whether it be pressure on the quarterback, Boise, we never controlled the game against Boise. When you don't win up front, they control the game. They control the game on the offense and defense line. So they were in control of the game the whole time. They can get home with 4, and when they, for us offensively, they were coming after us. Defensively, when they knew they could handle our rush, then all of a sudden they're going to open it up and throw, and that's why they averaged 8.4 a catch and had 9 explosives in the game. So we have to be more creative in finding ways, create matchups, whether it's movement, pressures, those things, but there's also a risk reward to everything you do, and the more risk becomes on the secondary of, hey, we got to get home. And so the way our secondary plays better is we get better pass rush.
Dylan Shepard, the A game on App TV. Lots of travel these last couple games.
Yeah.
Miss, and then the bye week in between that game and Boise State. How eager is the team to be able to come back to Kid Row Stadium and play in front of their home fans and get that home advantage?
Yeah, there's nothing like it. I mean, you want to play at home because there is the 12th man. There is a different energy at home, especially when you have the advantage we have at home. And it's just different. Like, I've been in places where the travel's easier because you're at home, but, like, you don't get energy from your crowd. You don't get energy from your student section. So when you go on the road, you battle that. So our guys are always excited to come here. I told the story a million times, but, like, the first time we came out of tunnel and just the way that our fans showed up for the spring game, and I could just hear how giddy they were. And a lot of these guys hadn't played in atmospheres like that. And even the guys that came from the Michigans and South Carolinas of the world were like, hey, this is a real crowd. This is a real atmosphere. So they started with our Mountaineer Walk the first time we ever did that. And we need our fans to show up for this one. This is going to be a big one. It's a big one because it's the next game, but it's also Oregon State coming to town. And we've got a bunch of our premier recruits going to be here. And I want our recruits to feel what it's going to be like if they come to school here. And that's how you build as you win is we got to keep recruiting. And this atmosphere is going to be the biggest selling point we have to what's different about this place. Well, it's our fans. It's the support you're going to have. It's a tradition of winning like no other. So we have to have our fans here. We have to have our students here, and they got to be here early.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate you guys.
So coming off of that press conference, I know we saw the stats on the QB hurries and AJ Swan seems to be under constant pressure. Do you think this is an offensive line problem, something else?
I think for sure, Dowell talked a lot about just the discipline of the team, and he said this team's undisciplined, which is really surprising to hear from the head coach saying that right there, but I think they just really got to lock in and focus on it during practice.
Thank you for joining us this week for AWN. I'm Sabrina Fody.
And I'm Adam Persico. Thanks for joining us.